Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can hear me. We don't have a microphone right now, so if you can't hear me, raise your hand and say what. I'm Greg Williams. I'm Director of Archives and Special Collections at Cal State Dominguez Hills. Just keep coming on over here for seats. If we run out of seats, we'll get some more. This floor has a lot of seats. I want to welcome you to the 15th anniversary of the Tradeswomen Archive. Archives anniversaries we don't think about very often, even though it's history, but we've been doing it consistently for the last couple of 5-year periods, and other folks will talk about the history of the archive. I wanted to do a couple of housekeeping things. There's restrooms that way, and there's restrooms down that hall and all the way down there. If there's any issues with that, please let me know. You've heard me talk about parking. I think we're okay, but if you didn't pay for the parking, talk to me and whatnot. Today we're going to have several short speakers talk about things. Vivian will introduce everybody. Then we're going to break in two, and one group will go into the archives reading room and see many of the collections. And are we doing a scavenger hunt? Yeah, we're doing a scavenger hunt, okay. And then the other group will go into the cold archives down that hall, and we will show you where the archives are all stored. The Tradeswomen collections have been a really great example of community-based archives, and especially at this institution, which was founded at the just after the Watts Rebellion. It's especially important that we get community archives, and it's not just tradeswomen material that we collect, even though the tradeswomen collections as a whole are probably one of our bigger collections. We also collect material on Japanese American incarceration during World War II. We have Black gospel music collections. We have material on the Chicano movement, the anti-racist Black power movement, and the material relating to the people that lived here in the 19th and 20th century, the Dominguez family, the Delamo family. If you know the Delamo Mall, which you probably often do, the Delamo Mall is named after Mr. Delamo, who came from South America before he was in Spain. He found a wife named Miss Dominguez, a little older than he was, but hey, so he found a good deal of riches here because they discovered oil after they got married. So, without, let's see, bathrooms. Anybody interested in talking about donating material eventually can talk to any of the founders of the Tradeswomen Archive, but also my staff and faculty here, Jennifer, Karen, Corinne, Tom. We'll all be wandering around. And I want to thank specifically Pat Williams and Vivian Price for helping us get this thing, and Jennifer, and get this thing off the ground. It's been really a great event to plan. And thanks so much for coming. So now I will introduce Vivian Price, our heroine of the archives, and you can go and talk away.
Well, I really want to appreciate Greg for having the foresight to know that this is a really important collection to make us feel welcome here. Back in, dates are a little bit blurry, but something like 2007, Lynn Shaw, Pat Williams, Jane Templin, and Lupe Valdez and I got together and thought, you know, we're getting older. This is fairly recently, right? It's 15 years ago. We have garages full of all the materials that we racked away. And what do we do with this? This is important material because when we came in back in the 70s and 80s, what did we have? We had Rosie the Riveters, who were then just being discovered. And fortunately, some of them had kept their materials. And we had something to look back at and say, we're not the first ones. And then we found out there was firsts in many other different eras. There were the women during First World War. And then we found out there's women doing construction work in India for centuries, right? We could go on. But if we don't preserve our material, then we become invisible. All the work that we do every day. I used to be an electrician, right? I worked, still fond of my jeans. You know, we work every day. We put in a lot of sweat and tears. We've been there for each other. We've had to struggle within our unions and in our work sites with one another. We got to preserve our history for the next folks coming up. Today, we're very, very fortunate to have some veterans from the wars back in the good old days. And we have some, you know, new people, some fresh faces, some new leaders, some emerging leaders, some organizations that have carried the torch. So I am having goosebumps at the fact that you're here today and that we have so much to share with one another. So we're going to have speakers from Ebony Shakur is going to be speaking, Jane, Pat, and again, we've got people from the archives to take your donations, but we have such wonderful people. We also want to have a round of self-introductions because we've got people here from San Diego, from Chicago, from many other places, right? And we want to hear who's here in the room. Then we'll go to the archives, get a sense of what the materials are, and then you'll get a tour of the kind of a larger collection. Because we want to hear from you. We want to make sure that you know your lives, all of our lives, really matter. And we need to have that material, whether it's diaries or journals or photographs or sometimes old boots, you know, dispatch papers, so that people will know that we were there. We're not the first black women doing this. We're not the first Latinas. We're not the first lesbians. We've been, you know, fighting this fight for a long time, and we're going to carry it on as you are today. So let me just ask Lynn and Pat to stand, and Jane Templin. These are the people who started this archive. And I just also want to, you know, mention that we are seeing this resurgence of green construction, of thinking about what are the jobs for tomorrow. Some of you, many of you have worked not only in fossil fuel and the refineries like I have, but also in the solar fields, solar farms and the windmills, in, you know, strengthening renewable energy. We need to fight for that. That's a woman's fight. That's everybody's fight. And we need to make sure that we are on those jobs and that we get trained for those jobs. And that we vote for new leaders, the women and the men who are fighting for equity and for justice and for a good society for all. So I'm going to turn this over to Ebony, who's come here from San Antonio today, and she's going to give us a few words. Ebony continues to fight today for many different important reasons for seniors, for accessibility, but we're here to just hear a little bit about her contribution from the Century Freeway as well. Thank you, Ebony.
Thank you. Wow, my heart is racing, especially to see the younger people here and to see this table right here, which I'll go into in a moment. And
May
I'm-
I put this on your lapel?
Oh, this is the
Oh,
one?
you got it. Okay, good.
Okay, and it was such a pleasure to come up to the table and for them to offer me the services that they had and information, and I not say who I was, but this is very exciting. So my main point today is to tie the Century Freeway project into what we have today, because the Century Freeway project was the largest construction project that had a consent decree to implement affirmative action. We can thank Judge Harry Ferguson for that, because he put in things that needed to be put in so that we could get women in the trades. Before I forget, I'm a journey machinist by trade. I worked for the railroad, Southern Pacific, for many years. But the Century Freeway, it took 35 years to get it done. But I have like 5 minutes to tell you all what I know about it. The thing that was unique about the Century Freeway is that it brought to light the needs. By the way, there were already laws in place that said equal rights. They had EEOCs. They had all of these things, but they still weren't doing the right thing. And if I might mention, they're not still doing the right thing so much today. But Judge Ferguson, who had been appointed by Lyndon Johnson to oversee this project, because when they came to the neighborhood to put in the Century Freeway, it was an impoverished neighborhood, low income, women, people of color, all of that. And so it was destroying that neighborhood. And they had to have something to keep it alive because they took everything. And I know many of you are probably familiar with eminent domain. I'm the granddaughter of someone who was kicked out of their home with eminent domain. And so the Judge Ferguson, who certainly knew the law, and everybody respected him for that, but the thing they didn't know about him was about his heart. He put things together so that when the Century Freeway was going to, they had to hire women, people of color, not just as the construction workers, but as contractors. They had percentages. He put together a committee called CFAC, the Century Freeway Affirmative Action Committee, that watched over everything. The thing that made this project successful is that boots were on the ground. People watched from the beginning. They checked whether the contractor, they taught them how to put together the contracts so they could ensure that they put in the plan for how they were going to hire the women. Where were they going to get the people of color from? They had replacement of affordable housing added to it, job training, which was the pre-apprenticeship program that they had. They put that in place. And they management for the contractors so they know how to do this. And this was one of my favorites because we know we get left out in this area. They added child care. CFAC was the responsible party for this. I worked for the Century Freeway Affirmative Action Committee. And one of the things that I knew almost from the beginning was that I needed to have a support group. Because we didn't just need the people on the job. We needed to have somewhere to go and have sisters that were going through what we were going through so we could talk to them. The sisters could talk to one another. They could find ways to handle the situations that they were facing on the job. All of you have been there. You know what I'm talking about. And so we had the support group there. Lynn Shaw came to the support group, Vivian came to the support group, many other women came to the support group so we could give them what they needed to stay. Because the hard part was not learning how to do the job, it was being able to stay and deal with the nonsense that you had to deal with every day just for being a woman, a person of color, someone different. Women were making prevailing wages. The projects were called mega. Why? Because they were making millions of dollars. Okay? And we were finally getting a piece of that pie. Judge Ferguson, he came, he would come to the office, and he'd tell me things like, if you're not getting what you need, you come and let me know. Because you know I have them by it. I'm like, it's okay, I got it, I got it, I got it. And I appreciate him to this day for all that he did. From the support group at Century Freeway came Winter. Women in non-traditional employment roles. Lynn, myself, Vivian, we started this from the ground up. It's probably the biggest thing I've ever done in my life that I'm so proud of, because now I see you and I know how far it's really gone and continues to go. So we hope that this information, this small bit, lets you know that the link in the chain is long. Lots of links in this wonderful chain. We are here and you are here because we stayed. I want to have Vivian and this one stand up with me because we worked very hard. The sisters were doing it for themselves.
Thanks so much for coming. That was beautiful. And you know Ebony's got a lot more to say.
I do. That was the other thing, you know. Give me 10
So
minutes.
she's here. Don't hesitate to
Yes.
tap her on the shoulder and talk to her. I'd like to ask Jane to come forward. You have a few things to say, and I've got a microphone for you. Oh, you've got Greg's. Thank you so much.
So while they're getting other things ready, I'm here to sort of entertain and talk to you about what we do and how we affect those around us and how we can keep that hand pulling people along with us and kind of sometimes even pushing them out ahead of us. Right, Pat? Yeah. And one of those things is our shirts. So, yeah, I heard some laughing. We are a union at Local 11 that was kind of renowned for pushing T-shirts, right? And the thing about it is we were representing. And everything we were doing, we were wearing these shirts and we thought we were good. We're going to Home Depot, we're going to the store, and we're wearing this billboard for women working construction. And I know a lot of the women, when it first started, they would say, oh, is your husband in construction? No, I am. My husband was wearing one of our shirts. We were up north. And he'd gone back to the car to get the camera or something. And somebody stopped him and goes, Local 11. I don't remember. And he goes, no, it's my wife. And they go, Jane? This was early on. There weren't a lot of us women. And he goes, yeah. And he said, come on. So they brought him over, and we all went, oh, hi, how you doing? It's like you can't go anywhere without hooking up, right? But the whole idea is the message and that you're role models. Y'all belong to Winter. How do I know that? That's right. And why is that important? Because now I have, if I had seen you, I would come up and go, hey, you're in Winter? What, are you graduated? Are you working? What are you doing, you know? It's a connection. How can I help? It's a connection. The things we do and our union, after a number of business managers. Now, I got to tell you the truth. A lot of guys would come up to me and go, I want to work with her. And I get you? See this woman here? That's not me. No. Representing diversity for our union. They put it out there. And when you wear it, it makes a difference because other women go, you work in construction? Opening line, right? The things we wear, the things we promote, they're important that way. And they help us as a community grow and connect, which is kind of exciting. And it doesn't, it's not just the construction aspects. Didn't know you were in for this treat. Another group. I wore this shirt, yeah. Coalition of Labor Union Women. I wore this shirt to the doctor's office. The idea of what I'm wearing because I believe in it, right? And here I am, and I'm getting something to eat after the doctor's office, and this woman comes, she says, I saw you in the doctor's office. I don't want to bother you, but I really like seeing that shirt out. That's a great shirt. Where can I get one? And I said, oh, well, it's, take a picture and have them make you one. Because this was part from a group, right? But the whole idea is with things that are happening and how things are happening now, it's again part of that networking and solidarity that we need to keep building. That the things that are important to us, let's put them out there. Let's wear them. Let's make them important too, so other people, when they see that, they go, oh, look, there's a woman in construction. And it's not like, right? It's like, oh, there's another woman in construction. Another electrician, all right. Those are the kind of things, T-shirts are your little commentaries. And it's your opportunity to put your oar in the water, so to speak. I like yours. And if it resonates with you, put it out there, right? I hope y'all enjoy it. We have T-shirts over there. Now, some have been not so gently worn. Most are gently worn. Some are new. You're welcome to take any of them. But if you don't want to take the T-shirt, but you like what it says, take a picture. Take a picture, and it's not that expensive to have a T-shirt made. Or even take it back to your group and say, let's have some T-shirts carrying this kind of saying or this kind of action. And that, again, you're networking, you're supporting. I remember a long time ago, Northern California, I went up to hear Angela Davis talk. And she was kind of on the down low then. But the thing was, they had buttons. So people would wear buttons, but then cover them up with their jackets, not on the outside of the jacket, but on the shirt inside, and then you sort of flash people, right? And buttons were really a big deal. T-shirts are more comfortable. So the thing about women building this country and what we do and our part in it, I am always proud to promote that. I'm going to have to look and see if I have any shirts from Century Freeway, because they were good about that too. Ebony was such a role model. She used to have us over wearing our tools. She said, come on over, I want you to talk to the workers. And we'll go, okay. She says, and where are your tools? And where are your tools? This is an outreach of that. So thank you for your time. I hope you enjoy the tour. You're going to see a lot of archives. And there's a lot of women here who haven't donated yet. And it's time maybe to think about doing that, okay? This goes in with the other ones. This is a better one. You didn't get the hook, but okay.
Jane's always teaching, right? She's always there supporting and teaching. Thanks so much.
Oh.
I'd like to invite Ethan Lee to come to the podium and just say a few words to us and share her thoughts about today. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Hello. Can you guys hear me? Ladies, gentlemen, all right, all right. How's it going? I met Vivian at a green energy. Again, I'm just a very loud advocate for my community. I'm a Native American tradeswoman, but I'm also a huge advocate labor for getting Native Americans to work. And a part of that is connecting my community members. And a lot of that portion of that is just caring about the earth and caring about my identity as a Native person and how to like balance that with my work, like doing union work and making sure that we uphold these companies with cleaning up behind them and that we're taking care of the earth and that it's as good as when they first got there. And when they leave, that it doesn't leave a lasting legacy. And so I don't know where I saw this from. I think it was social media or something, but I saw this like get together with tradespeople for green energy. And I was like, you know, this is really important to me. I make it a big deal to focus on green if I can, you know, so let me attend this. And that's where I met Vivian. And we've been knowing each other for a couple of months now from that, and it's grown from there. And it's one of those things where when you think about, as a Native person entering the building trades, you think about how your impact will affect your tribe and how that'll affect the land stewarding that you do as a Native person. In my role, I'm just a community advocate. I say I'm a community activist, and I say that I try to work with my communities to bring them into the building trades, and it's really difficult. And a number of reasons for that is because of the nature behind union work and Native communities, right? We don't exactly have the best relationship with construction and in the construction industry. We don't have the best relationships with, you know, the extracting industry. We don't have a very good relationship with oil and coal and big oil and all those like things. And even with mining, we have bad with lithium mines and, you know, uranium mines and all these mines. You know, and so I just wanted to share my story and how I got here today. So I come from multi-generational blue-collar workers. And when I say blue-collar, I mean before the union, right? I'm talking legacies and legacies of my people being taken from our community and being used for labor, right? And those are untold histories. And I think a lot of Black community members in this room know exactly what I'm talking about, enslavement. So I come from a background of that, and my family, for generations, have built the Southwest. When they couldn't find Mexicans or Blacks to do the work, they grabbed Indians. And that was a very notable thing in the Southwest and why Arizona the way it is, a right-to-work state. And so I came from this huge background of hearing over the dinner table growing up, you know, things about what company came to town. And, you know, oh, that uncle disappeared on that railroad with dynamite because that company did this. And hearing about like uranium in my dad's side of his neighborhood in Cameron, which is on the Navajo reservation for where I'm from. I'm Navajo, Diné. And so I came from a legacy of listening to that over cereal, right? And that to people who don't know anything about activism, that's like the key point in activism is if it lands on the working man's table. When I mean the table, I'm not talking about the work table, they use their hand saws. I'm talking about the table at home. Because where you get your labor from and how you procure your labor and how that labor is integrated into the community and how it's used and how you use those people where you're getting your labor from changes that community and changes those effects on those community members. So let's go back to me. I became an iron worker. Both my dads are iron workers. I come from a long line of iron workers and pipe fitters and electricians. We built the Southwest, so it's unheard of us not being in any trade. Our hands are in everything. Go anywhere to any job site, you're gonna find a Navajo. That's just how it is. You're gonna find one Navajo. We're huge. We're everywhere. I had issues going to school. I couldn't get education. Like, it was really hard for me to stay in school. I was trying to get a history degree because I was super into Native history, and I wanted to know why the world was the way it was as a Native person looking at Western culture. So I was like, oh, I'm going to go to school, and I realized I couldn't afford to go to school. So then I was like, okay, I'm having 3 jobs, full-time school, and I'm not being able to survive. So let's figure out something. My dad picked me up from the job site when he had just come. He was working at Humboldt Casino. My brothers were all working on the Humboldt Casino with him, and I was going to school at Cumaca. And he picked me up at the bus stop, and we're all in his truck, and we're talking about, they're talking about the job site. And if you know anything about union work, right, after work, we always talk about what? Work, right? We're always talking about work. So what are they? They're just talking work, and I was like, they're like, okay, well, how's your? Back then, I was on the bus, so I was like running around, and they're like, well, what's your next job looking like? What's you looking at? And I just told them point blank, I was like, I don't want to take out student loans. I don't want to be stuck in that plethora of like financial burden, and I really am about. I was raised to work for what I want. So that was really ingrained into me when I was young. So I started working when I was 13. And so I was like, okay, well, I need to work to get my degree. And I'm thinking union money. I'm thinking a trade. I don't know what. He's like, well, you've done, back then I did, I welded airplane turbines. And on top of that, I did all sorts of other stuff like, waitressing and dishwashing and the most random stuff. And so he's like, well, you have some welding certs, why don't you consider, do pipe fitting or do an ironwork? And I was like, you know what, I'll try it again. Because at that time I had tried to get an ironwork before. And I think it took like 3 times to get into ironwork. And the 3rd time was a charm, right? And I ended up getting into the first national, I think I am in the archives actually, because the first national ironworker women's gladiator program had launched in Benicia by Dick Zampa. And ironworker women from all across the nation were selected. I was one of them. And I went to training in Benicia, and I ended up getting accepted, and that was the start of my ironworker career over 8 years ago. But, from there to how I am today, right, I'm getting out of the field now. I'm moving up and moving on and finishing my degree, stuff like that. But what I realized was there's no safe space for Native women. Like, you could get women together, but Native women were not getting the support they needed, and they weren't getting the cultural competent people to understand their direct issues that they were dealing with on the job site. Whether it was seeing their coworkers they were working with in the field picking up, pottery, Indian pottery, or not reporting, anything with graves. When they'd go on the job, they'd be like, oh wow, they just totally put that arrowhead in their pocket and left the job site. So I'm hearing stories, and from years and years of being, like my family being in the trades and being in construction, I had heard so much history that I knew already the dirty practices the industry practices, right? And so at that point I was like, okay, well, there isn't really anything for Natives, so what did I do? I advocated. I talked to Vicky O'Leary, International, NAP2, and I was able to get land acknowledgements of the last Native North American Building Trades Union, Tradeswomen Build Nation thing for each year, so we could be visible, so that we can make a space for ourselves, because again, Native women don't typically get that space. And it was also being careful about how we were recruiting from the Native communities, because again, I'm talking with tradeswomen from all across the nation. I'm talking to Native communities all across the nation, trying to get Natives into the building trades. And so if I go to Oklahoma and outreach to Oklahoma, well, then there's man camps. And these Native women are disappearing. So now I had to bring up MMIW, missing murdered indigenous women, and why are women disappearing near construction sites? So how am I going to recruit from the same community that are missing their women? How do I confront that and the fact that there's everyday systemic racism in these companies? And then when I get these women into there, how do I keep them there? There's no resources for these women. And again, I'm seeing a systemic issue across the board, whether it gets handled, and because Native Americans the community is so unique with the way they deal with Bureau of Indian Affairs, the way they get their grant money, the way they spend their money, it's so difficult to navigate, and it's kind of like a very detailed thing. So what I ended up realizing is that we need more women higher up. I need more women in positions of power that actually do things. I need women who change policy. I need women running apprenticeship programs. I need Native women running unions. I need Native women in these positions. And I'm hitting this glass ceiling. And I was just talking to Miranda, one of my lovely Yaqui sisters were there on the way over, and we're realizing, wow, we're hitting this ceiling. And I had a frank conversation with my my business manager last week, and I just told him point blank, like I'm gonna tell you right now, is, look, we can make and have as many DEI heads out there. You can get Vicky O'Leary to do the Be the One Guy campaign in our local, but that's not gonna change anything. The campaigns won't change anything because the workers won't change, because it has been a historic process of man culture, blue collar men culture. If you go to, the mines, right? And you tell a miner, yeah, notice that time. If you tell a miner, hey, you're gonna do this like this, and it's completely against what they've known, they're not gonna know how to do that. They're gonna, oof, what's going on? So when we create safe spaces, let me try to make this fast. When we create safe spaces, we also have to make room for maybe hard conversations. And that's Native conversations, honestly. And people don't understand, it's like they're afraid to share space, like they resource guard. That's the thing. Nobody wants to share what's on their paper, but really, if we literally just compare notes, it's almost like a copy and paste. And it takes letting guard downs and creating safe spaces. So I just advocate for safe space creating, and I appreciate, the time to share a little bit about Native issues here today, and I really appreciate this archive, and I hope to see a section devoted eventually to Native tradeswomen. And we just finished our first meeting last week, so it's starting, and it's all about organizing. So if you're looking for support, speak up, stand up, let everybody know how we can contact you. Don't leave here feeling like you're alone in what you're doing. Especially if you're a professional trying to break that glass ceiling. Don't feel like you're the alone, because you're not. Everyone's out there is trying to make change for their community, and every woman is trying to make what's better for the next woman coming after her.
Thank you so much, Ethan Lee. And we have a few more speakers before we go into the archives. I wanted to ask Cruz, Selena, and Pat to speak, and also acknowledge Kelly and Laura from the Women's Bureau. So, Cruz, would you like to come up and say a few words?
Thank you. Better leave that microphone on, huh?
It's for the camera.
It's okay. Hi guys, how are you? Lovely to see everybody here. I wasn't prepared to speak, so I can probably speak forever. It's been a long time coming, but I want to say first of all, thank you to Pat. Right? I want to say, Vivian, thank you so much for having us here. I want to thank Jane. These are my superheroes, right? When we had such a large gap in between when we first started and where we are today. Somewhere along the way, they kept it going, right? And so I want to start off saying that my name is Cruz. I just retired a week and a half ago. So I was with the Carpenters for 33 years. I think I was semi-retired before that, thinking how to basically do an easier job, I guess would say, because the joints don't do what they used to do anymore, right? Even though the mind is there, the body doesn't move the way it does, And when you're out in the field, we know we have to be efficient. So we kind of want to go out in a graceful way, right? And not come out hobbling and doing this and, everything else that we come out looking like. But anyways, and then so I was offered a job with Upland High School, and I was also offered a job with the Department of Industrial Relations. I took the job with the Industrial Relations, and I actually just started Tuesday. So They opened up a position, a created position for an apprenticeship consultant for equity and inclusion. It's the first position that's named that, so it's actually the first equity and inclusion consultant. And of course, it's inclusive of representing all of us, right? So let me tell you a little bit of a history of myself. Chicago, I was a kid. I was like 11 years old, and my sister wanted to be a stewardess, and my other sister wanted to be a model, and I wanted to be a carpenter. You know? And I think that I was born to be a carpenter because if nothing else, I would have not known how else to live, really. I don't know why, but that was my path in life, right? And here comes a person in Chicago. I grew up in the projects in Chicago, and this person comes to our class, 7th grade, and he says, we need more women or more girls in woodshop. And I thought I was going to leave with that man. I was like, don't leave. I'm your person, you know. I want to be able to do what you're asking me to do because that's the only way I want to live. I want to, go to woodshop. I want to be a carpenter. This is my life, right? So, and so I did. I went to woodshop. 3 years. I think I only went to high school for woodshop. Everything else was kind of, right, secondary, right? So from there, we can see we're talking about 1979, and we're talking about going to high school in 81. We're talking about graduating in 85. We're talking about trying to get into the apprenticeship for the carpenters, and it literally took me 6 years, right, just to get in the door. Right, so I love the carpenters. First of all, they are part of the integrity of my life. They've allowed me to work and create a better life for myself and for my family. I never forget that. But also, I want to say, thank you to some of my friends throughout their journey. Some of my sisters that are here. Lovely sisters that I get a chance to talk to on a daily basis, that we've grown together, that we've been able to reach out and support each other through this journey, because we don't do this by ourselves. By no means. Everybody that's in this room has touched somebody's life in one way or another and will continue to, right? But in this new role that I have now, it is my job to make sure that gets taken to the next level, right? And I say that with a lot of emotion because I'm a serious, hardworking person, and we're coming to get some stuff done, right? We're really going to change, we're going to move the needle on this one. This is no more talking about this. It's time to get it done, right? So I can like literally say a lot of things. I just have to calm myself down because I don't think I've slept since November, since I've considered even taking this position or even staying working. Because that's another thing too. I mean, as long as we've been working, sometimes with the amount of passion that we have to make the changes, sometimes we don't feel like we have the support. But now I think that this is the era that we are actually finally seeing the people that are in place to make the changes necessary. And I can't thank you enough, Pat, and I can't thank you enough, Vivian, and I can't thank you enough, Jane, for keeping us going to get us to where we're at, because it's been a long journey, right? They said there's no applause at the finish line. I promise you there's not. There's not going to be, trophies and accolades for what this needs to be at this point, right? This is about making sure that we come out and be the people that we need to be to support our families, right? To be the head of households, to represent people of color, people of different genders, different educational backgrounds. This is about making sure that we're all recognized for everything that we do on a daily basis to get us where we're at, right? And that we have the support necessary going forward, and making sure that we recognize everybody in the room as sisters and brothers going on this journey together, right? To make sure that we show the love that it's necessary to support each other, because if it wasn't because of my family, my sister with the level head, with the language, my other sister with the Beatles songs and, endless arts. If it wasn't for the strength of my sister as a mother, showing me what it takes to raise a family and a person with disabilities as well, showing the strength of what that takes to show the power and the strength of our mothers. If it wasn't for the fact that we started a program called Boots about 5 years ago, did I not get to see the women and different varieties of women, different journeys that they came just to be in the classroom. The inspiration, and initially at first I was like, when I became an instructor, I was teaching mostly young men, right? And when they gave me the assignment of we're going to create a program for all women, I called it Boots because we all put our boots on in the first of the day. I don't care if you're an electrician, iron worker, labor, right? That was how we all start in the beginning of the day. And this is how we basically are also mentioned, right? Boots, we can say it 1,000 times. Now we're associated to success, right? And so initially when these women came through, they came in from a situation that might have been in an abuse situation. They came in a situation where they were head of household and they didn't know how to support their families. They came in without a place to go because they were in the process of doing gender transition, for example. So the variety of people that came through that room gave me, forget about me giving them the knowledge, they gave me the knowledge, right? Because I was there basically not to tell them what I know, I was there to make sure that they knew what they knew, right? That they knew more than they thought they were told, right? And that fed me, so we fed each other, right? So I'm hoping that going forward that we continue to feed each other. This is how we're going to get to the other side, because we need all of you in this room to come together to make sure that this is a united effort. This is no longer just by yourself, even though you may feel by yourself. I'm telling you, we are going to come together, and this is going to move. This is going to be a new era, I promise you. I mean that, right? Thank you.
We have a surprise.
Oh, excuse me.
I believe there's some people who want to give you something. Is that right?
Oh.
So this is coming from Desiree and all of these people.
Whoa.
And everything. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, thank you. This is an amazing surprise. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take this.
Okay.
Thanks so much. You know, we had our plans, but of course, we have new plans. When life intervenes, we've got to be able to ask people to come to the stand and speak. And I really appreciate your spontaneity and your willingness to stand up, as Selena is going to do right now. Say a few words.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Selena Barone. I'm a journey level inside wire electrician with Local 11 Los Angeles. And I wanted to say how special it is and how much I appreciate the archives existing. So much of us are an active part of history, and we kind of don't know it because we're just doing regular people things like going to work and trying to make sure we can pay the bills and take care of our family. And when I think about the ways that we actively participate in history and how important it is for us to tell our stories, I hope everyone knows what a gift your story can be to someone else who's coming behind you. When I joined the apprenticeship, I was a single parent and I had a child, and I was like, leaving my kid in my grandmother's house at 4 o'clock in the morning so I could get to work. It was wild. And in my apprenticeship, I became pregnant, and I was trying to figure out what in God's name I was going to do, and how I was going to manage the 80 things I had going on, and be an apprentice and have this career that I wanted really badly. But also being a parent is so hard and complicated, and I, by chance and by luck, was talking to Hannah Cooper, who is the daughter of Kelly Cooper, who was the first woman in IBW Local 11, and she was like, my mom took time off. And not 6 weeks off, not 6 months off, she took years off. And when she was ready to come back, she did. It's okay, take your time, do what you gotta do, take care of your family. And I needed to hear that, because I was so afraid. What if I did want to stay home with my kid? What if my family was able to support me in that way so I didn't need to go back to work right away, right? Could I still be a strong union tradeswoman who was kicking ass and also stay home with my daughter, right? Am I still valid? Is that still real? And Hannah told me, of course it is. The first woman did it here, and you could do it. And so I did. I took a good amount of time off then, and then when she got to kindergarten, I got in the child care crunch. I don't know if anyone's ever experienced where there's half-day kindergarten, but let me tell you, whoever's idea that was, it's not helping any working moms. Because who can afford pre-child care and after-school child care? It was a wild debacle. And I was like, I'll just take this 1 year off. Like, it's fine. I'll take 1 year off, I'll be present, and I'll build this great relationship with my daughter. It'll be fine, right? But then the pandemic hit, and 1 year quickly turned into more years. And homeschool pandemic childcare was like a wild situation, and I'm off, and I really worry about if people will see me differently, if I still count, if I'm still a tradeswoman, right? But a sister told me, it's okay, you can do that. Go, take your time. My mom did it. You're still real, you're still a sister, you're still a tradeswoman. Come back when you're ready. And it has also existed for me where there were times where I have decided, you know what, no, I'm not gonna go be soccer mom of the year. I'm not gonna take my daughter to Girl Scouts and piano lessons and the 87 million things that small children can be involved in because actually my career is important and my union activism is important. And the way that I show up and the way that I work every day and take too many silly meetings about who knows what, it's really important that I show up in that way, and so I'm going to, and I felt really bad about it. I felt like the intense guilt for prioritizing myself and my career and the changes I wanted to see in the world. But I went and I saw a Dolores Huerta documentary, and I feel like there can be a lot of Latino culture around being like the very best mom, and your children being the only, like your whole identity, right? And then there's Dolores Huerta, and she's there with her daughters, and she's like, yeah, I got a few baby daddies, and when I had this union work to do, I left my kids with them, because you know what? They're their father too. It's okay. I can go do this. I can go handle my business, and they'll be all right. I'm still a good mom. I'm still a good parent. It's okay, right? And I think there are also times where we need to take care of ourselves, right? We do live in this world that is very hard, and some of us really struggle with addiction, abuse, and mental health, and all of those struggles, and luckily we're seeing an insurgence of support for that, right? But it can be really scary to try to take that time for yourself. And so my biggest appreciation for this space is that when you're just doing something like taking care of yourself, right? When you're just doing something like going to work or taking care of your children or your spouse or your parents, right? If we document it, if we hold those stories in this space, or if we just tell our sisters about it, right? We all know it's okay, it's possible, it's real. You're still a sister if you take time off, and you're still a sister if if you have to leave and come back many years later and you're still a great parent and person and all of those things, if you choose not to be Mom of the Year with the badges and the whatevers. And so I just want to thank this space for existing, because maybe you don't get to have a conversation by chance with a person who tells you the story you need to hear. And so with these archives, we can really have the opportunity to share our stories and have them and have a bank of those stories whenever we need them. It's a treasure I truly appreciate, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Selena. Y'all are making history, creating more material for the archives and creating change in the world. That's the most important thing. Okay, we've got 2 more speakers, brief speakers. Kelly from the Women's Bureau, please come up and tell us about your organization, what you all are doing. Let's see if we can point up. No. Let me try it this way.
Okay.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Jenkins-Foltz. I'm with the Department of Labor Women's Bureau. My colleague, Leah Carpio-Hernandez, is with me. And we are the federal agency that works to get women better jobs, higher pay, and better benefits. And we've been doing this work for a long time, over 100 years. And as I've been sitting here listening to these stories, I couldn't help but remember some of the Women's Bureau history and how it's been intertwined with the tradeswomen history. And many of you may already know this, but the fight for equal pay really started with the tradeswomen. It was the Rosies who were going into the factories and were doing the same work that the men were doing, and they weren't getting the same pay. And so they're the ones who really stood up and said, no, we are needing to get paid the same as men. We're doing men's work, we need to get equal pay. And the struggle continues. I know a lot of the tradeswomen on these job sites today, they struggle to get the same hours. We might be getting the same hourly pay, but we don't always get the same hours. And so the Women's Bureau is still continuing to support you in that work. Right now, we're looking at the biggest infusion of federal infrastructure spending that we've seen in decades. And behind the scenes, the Women's Bureau is working very, very hard with Department of Transportation, Department of Commerce, Department of Energy, all these other agencies that have the infrastructure money to work with them on the workforce side and to encourage them to put in workforce goals for making sure women have access to these jobs. And so we've been doing a lot of that work with those of you on the ground, here on the ground. Not only do we want to get you into those jobs, but we want to fight for job site culture. And so the work that we'll be doing over the next, coming year will be not only to get women in the jobs, but to fight for respect and dignity on the job site. So Lee and I, look forward to supporting all of you in the important work that you do and continuing to have your back. And and just to be your partner. You have a friend in the Women's Bureau. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly, can we have the mic back?
Oh, that will be good.
Thanks so much. The Women's Bureau was the first funder that helped get Winter off the ground. Our first $150,000 grant. So Kelly's not fooling. That support is really important. And I know, I'm just going to say, yeah. I want to just recognize Lauren Sugarman from Chicago, too, who's one of the leaders in the Midwest and nationally, internationally. But I'm going to turn right now to Pat to close us out before we move into the archives.
I think it's turned on. Hi, I'm Pat Williams, retired stationary operating engineer. I started in 1979. Many years after becoming an operating engineer, I realized through an inspiration of another archive called Mazer Lesbian Archives that they had none of us in their archive. And I knew there were a lot of dykes out there that were doing carpentry work and other kinds of things. But they weren't, none of the lesbians were preserving their history to go in there. And I realized, wait a minute, we're not preserving our history. And so some phone calls later and some meetings and a very wonderful archivist by the name of Greg Williams, no relation, we have put this together. And it's all because of all of you who come here, who tolerate me saying, hey, put your stuff in the archive. And the reason is because those of us that started out early on, we did not have people to look up to. We had nobody, we had us, and most of us weren't even on jobs that had other women. I fortunately had women I worked with because I worked in the high-rises, but most of you in the holes and in the different levels of construction, you didn't have women. And it's like, I realized as much as I hated history when I was young, I hated history. It's like that was the dread because none of us were there. Nobody that I could relate to was in history. And then it came down to, wait a minute, we are history. We are making history. Every time anybody walks on a job site, you're history. Every time you put on some of those T-shirts that Jane was talking about, and I have a wonderful collection of T-shirts from all kinds of unions, and I wear them so proudly when I go out, because every T-shirt that I own that has a union insignia was given to me by tradeswomen that I actually knew, shook hands with, and hugged, and thanked them for that T-shirt. And so everything that we're doing is history. And we all have different ways of making that history. I take pictures of T-shirts. That's what I do. I do the T-shirt Tuesday project through Kick-Ass Careers because Jamie, my partner, said, you have thousands of pictures of T-shirts. What are you doing with them? Let's start T-shirt Tuesday. And it's to show each of you and women from all over, wherever I post it, you're not the only one who may have walked through that local. You're not the only one in that career and in that trade. Other people tell their history, like Sandy, who's here. She did almost all of the photographs for Tradeswomen Inc. magazine. Phenomenal collection. Sandy, I'm going to embarrass you. We have such an amazing amount of pictures because of what Sandy did. Other people write poetry. Sue Doro, she's a poet. Look at the poetry that gets posted that she has done about tradeswomen's work. She just came out with a new book this last year, Sue Doro the Machinist, or a girl named Sue. And at any rate, we all have different ways of preserving the history. Part of the reason that I do the posting through the archive here for Throwback Thursday and Flashback Friday, and then somebody told me the other day about Way Back Wednesday, so I may have to include that. The whole reason I started that is because we have so much stuff in this archive that nobody knows about and nobody sees. So I began saying, well, okay, let me come up with something to start sharing them, and I post them, and I have all kinds of files in my computer. I may have to upgrade my computer, I got so much, just to be able to show to the world what it is that we have in this archive. Then one day, some young whippersnapper tradeswoman says to me, You're one of the beginnings. What did you guys all do? We never heard about anything that you did, and why did you not fix anything? Why are we still going through this? And I said, oh my God, you just have no clue. So I thought about it, and I thought about those Tradeswomen Inc. magazines. It's like this is where we had so much history. And so I spent an entire summer scanning every page, every damn page of that project, so that the younger people who were not around then can know what Tradeswomen Inc. did and what they preserved as far as history going back from the 80s all the way up to the late 90s. And then from there, we had Sue Doro that picked up history, where she takes articles from all over. Anybody that has anything they want to write about, get a hold of Sue Doro. She's always looking for people to write for her, for Pride in a Paycheck. That is now in 25 years. So we have a collective history from 1981 to 2024 of tradeswomen's history. So if you're ever bored, look up on Tradeswomen Inc. magazine, the archive,
and you'll find all kinds of history stuff that's there. The Tradeswomen Inc. magazines are online through the archive here, and just start learning and adding your own history to what it is. Because, like I said, every time you walk onto a job site, whether you're a pre-apprentice through winter, whether you're somebody getting ready to retire, every time you're out there on a job site, you are history. Every time you put on that T-shirt or those work boots, you are history. Preserve your history so that some kid down the road is going to be able to hear about what you did and that you walked on this earth and you made a difference to other people. Thank you.
We have donation slips over at our table. If you want to find out, it's just filling out something saying a gift to the archive. There's no money involved, just so that we have access to your files and you can set your terms however you want to. I want to also recognize Bridget O'Farrell, a famous researcher who's published a great deal. The archives are for scholars who are trying to preserve and tell the stories about the history that everybody here is making. And it's also for activists who are working to change the policies and the practices so that we can stay and fight to see another day, and that we can close the loops, or at least try to start closing the loops in the histories that we have, because we don't have an inclusive history, and that's why we have to continue to gather and make sure that we have a wide tent so we bring everybody in. All right, at this point, Greg, we're going to divide up into two groups. Half of us are going to go into the archives and have the exciting scavenger hunt and ability to look at the materials in the boxes. And the materials, what?
So maybe half of this group over here can go down that hallway, so it's for the archives tour. The other half can go into the reading room. Please don't bring any drinks or food into the reading room. If you have a bottle that's closed, you can put it in your back pocket or something like that. But please, the real reason outside the archivist, I said, hear the old stuff. And if there's any other questions, write down and ready. Continue to come out here if you want to and socialize, but for right now, we will divide up into two groups and check out what we have.
You'll see the extent of the materials we have, and then we'll have a chance to regroup and have an open mic too. Thank you very much.